Hey guys, so if you follow me on Instagram or even on here, honestly, you'll know that we recently, due to reasons, decided to pivot from relying heavily on dual enrollment classes to relying on advanced placement AP classes, and also instead of graduating early to take community college classes first priority, we're no longer doing that. So we're going to do the full 4 years of high school, and we're just changing the plan. So part of that plan is me reevaluating what we're doing, because we have more time, and we're not using the transfer option as our primary option. Now we're doing freshman admission, so kind of just recalibrating. So the first part of that is that I'm going to be talking about today is that we've been using Oak Meadow English materials, literature materials as a backbone for both of the prior years of high school, and I feel more comfortable with doing 4 years, at least for junior year, continuing to do that. And there's a couple other reasons that we're going to do that, but I won't get too much into that because the point of this video is to compare Oak Meadow literature to Memoria Press. So we will be comparing world literature. Oak Meadow has lots of different options. This is the one we'll be looking at, and we are going to be comparing it with the Memoria Press 12th grade literature, which is these titles. And I have all of them except instead of King Lear, I have Macbeth. But anyway, I'm trying to do apples for apples, if that makes sense. So the Oak Meadow World Literature, this is a prior version of it. They now sell it with a new cover. Is also meant for 11th or 12th grade, and you purchase it. This is the student textbook, and this is the teacher manual, and these are the books that come with it. This is now called World Literature Classics, I think. So you do Kafka, you do the Ramayana, you do Don Quixote, and you do Ibsen's A Doll's House, which is a play. And these are all books that I wanted her to read at some point during high school. When I was in high school, I printed out this long 100 title classics list that the college board was recommending high school students finished. And, there's just not enough time to do all of them. But these are some books I definitely wanted her to do. I just wasn't sure when or how to incorporate that. So I purchased this 1 or 2 years ago, and it's just been sitting in my closet. It was, I think, on clearance because they changed some things around. That's why it has the older display. But anyway, we'll start getting into it. So the first thing that I like about Oak Meadow from 6th grade and up is that's when they start having it. Instead of having everything in one textbook, they have separate subjects. And so you do one lesson per week. And within the lesson, this will tell the student what to do. And it tells them what to read. This is kind of like their lesson plan. So here's the first assignment, which is not related to the literature. And let's look at lesson 2. So it gives you some like captain, what is that called? Captain thought? I don't know. That's a word the CMEC uses. Captain ideas for how to do things. Then you're going to be starting out with Metamorphosis. I'm a big Kafka fan. And it tells you to read it in lesson 2. Lesson 3 is respond to the essay questions. So read this, take notes, vocabulary, and I'm just reading through this with you. And then you have, so this is assuming that you've already read it, then you have discussion questions. So define metamorphosis, then there's different discussion questions which are involving the themes. So here's the metamorphosis theme, the rooms, alienation in the working world, and this is all one lesson. So you could see how this is a very robust amount of work that you're doing just for this book. And then you have more writing, which is relating to it after you've thought in depth about these themes and done some work in them. So yes, now that you have a deep understanding, then you have lesson 5, which is write a paper. So what I like about Oak Meadow in general is that you see there's a lot of directions written to the student, and it's very easy to follow if you have an independent worker. Like, this is what you're supposed to read, this is what you're supposed to write, right? I also feel like there is a lot of writing in Oak Meadow, which was one of the things that drew to me when we were considering it in middle school, because the assignments were like based on what you were learning in history, for example, write a paper about this and that. So that was one of the things that drew me to and continues to draw me to Oak Meadows. I feel that it does a really good job of having a lot of writing, which is particularly important in high school. And I also like that no matter which particular literature you're doing, you have these different books, whatever the theme is, and they're all tied together into this one text. So I feel like it's more succinct, it's more approachable. I also particularly like that you're doing the full book. One of my one of the things I dislike about how education is being done in certain schools is kids are not reading full-length books. They're reading excerpts, and I think that that's a travesty, and it is, they're missing out. Their education is going to be not as good as a result of that. So anyway, getting off my soapbox, we'll look a little bit in the teacher manual for this one. So you don't necessarily have to refer to this as much in English classes, in my experience, because a lot of the questions that you're going to be asking your students are open-ended. But if you are doing something and you want to have more accountability, or if you need to give grades, like if you're in a charter or you want to have grades on like every single assignment versus just grading certain assignments, that's why I always get the teacher guides for high school. Also, it is a lot easier if you don't have time to read all of these materials and answer the questions, and you don't want to have to rely on things like Google or AI or whatever. That's why I always recommend purchasing these for the high school level, whatever the subject. But I have found that Oak Meadow in particular, the teacher guide does have information that is not in the student guide. It's not merely an answer key. Like if you had math, for example, and you know, are a mathematician genius, you don't need to have an answer key, right? Because it's just like, oh, it's 8 divided by 3, or not 8 divided by 3, 28 divided by 24 divided by 8, whatever. There's really different content in the teacher guide is my point. It's not merely giving these answers that you could easily find. So that's kind of an overview of how Oak Meadow works. We have previously done British literature, and before that we did literature and composition too. I choose these primarily based on the books that they include, and also based on my particular students' prior studies. So literature and composition we did because the prior edition, which looked like this, had Anthem by Ayn Rand, and there's an Ayn Rand scholarship competition I wanted my student to be able to do, so she needed to read that book, be familiar with it. That was why I bought that. I also bought Hero's Journey for my other student who, for 9th grade, because it had the books that it had, the prior edition, not the current one. Anyway, that is how I pick. It is not based on whatever state standards are floating around or things like that. It is based on my vision for my individual students' education, based on their goals, based on their prior history, and based on what they want to accomplish in the future. So anyway, that is the kind of overview of that. Now we will look at the comparative Memoria Press books. So we have Anna Karenina, Hamlet, The British Tradition 3, The Tale of Two Cities, and you're supposed to do King Lear, but I did Macbeth because we haven't done it yet. So if you are trying to do all Memoria Press materials, this is what you will purchase for literature only. There is a separate program for composition. I do not use that, but you will need to get something if you are trying to do the Memoria Press core. I bring that up because you may not have seen my other videos where I describe the literature as being solely based on the reading analysis of the literature. This is not a program that's teaching you how to write. Neither is Oak Meadow at this level. It's expected you already know how to write. So just want to put that out there. The first thing that I want to start with is British tradition because this is level 3. I think there are currently 3 levels. I'm not sure if there's a 4th one. So each level is based on a period of history, and you get the student guide, the student text, student guide and the student text, and then this is the teacher guide, and this lasts throughout the year. So if you buy the lesson plans for Memoria Press, which are by grade level and are customizable, so this is in the 12th grade, I'm pretty sure lesson plans. I could be wrong. This could be 11th grade. Ask them. Email Memoria Press if you want to know. It schedules it in between books. So you'll be doing this for several weeks, and then you'll be doing a different novel study or whatever. So this is really focused on poetry, and it is British poetry, right? So the plus side of focusing on British poetry for 3 years is your student will have a very deep understanding of it. This is a very, very in-depth program. It is very rigorous, very good. I do wish that they had other options, particularly Russian poetry, for example, or other areas of the world. But, they are also only humans over there. They can only pump out so much curriculum. So I am happy with this. So you have an assignment. Here's William Blake, Read the Tiger. So it has preparatory questions. Then there are reading notes. And there are vocabulary words and comprehension questions. So let's see if we can find the poem in the student text. Oh, here it is. Lucky me. So here's the poem. And it's just this page, right? So the student reads that, does this analysis, and that is their poetry. This is the teacher guide that comes with it. Let's see if we can find the same one. So here you have words to be defined. You have comprehension questions. Here, this is what the student guide is in the middle. It's just a picture-in-picture, and then you have Socratic discussion questions. So if you're just even looking at the poetry, it is just really such a rich resource that you have, and is considered part of this comprehensive core. So just right off the bat, if you look at Oak Meadow, I don't think there is poetry in here. Some of the levels I think have, I know British tradition has, I might be completely wrong. Hold on a second. This might have poetry in it as well. Okay, you do have poetry. So, for example, lesson 17, John Keats, it says, read appendix, page 124 to 125. So here is also poetry. So I take back what I said. There's also poetry in here, and it is incorporated into this text. So your student just goes along, gets to lesson 17, and then there's a poem, and it has writing assignments for it. So anyway, poetry. Then the next thing we'll get into is Tale of Two Cities by Dickens. So this is the book that they're reading. This is the student book. This is the same sort of layout as I just showed you for the poetry. This is the basic features and background. This is the characters. This is just amazing by itself. Then you have stuff about genre, setting, motifs, themes. This, I've never looked at this. This is really impressive. Then you have information about the French Revolution, giving you context. Then you have a brief overview, consequences, timeline. This is just so great. So you can see that the main difference between these two materials is that this goes very deep, right? This is going to go much deeper when you're spending this much time on a novel versus read Metamorphosis, then answer questions. in one lesson, right? Versus like you're doing 10 lessons. So this is just going to be a much deeper analysis, and you're spending time dwelling in these books, and you're getting such a rich, deep familiarity with whatever it is that you're doing. And again, I would absolutely recommend the teacher guide for anything Memoria Press, because not only to, check the boxes about did they get this right or wrong, but if you just look at, let's see if there's Socratic questions in here. This is really what stands out to me about Memoria Press versus other options that are out there. This also makes it very good if you're in a co-op setting or in a group setting and you have a lot of high school students and you don't have a lot of time. You have everything here. You could even read, chapter 1 with the kids, and then you've already got everything done for you. I did try to get some writing assignments when my daughter was reading Tolstoy, and it was like a whole separate part-time job just trying to put everything together. So I really love the ease of using Memoria Press. I know that I can rely on them and trust them to do a good job. The one thing I will say is that you will notice that none of these say charter version. These are all from the regular Memoria Press store. There are not many of these at the high school level available on the charter site. I suspect that will change. I haven't asked, but I have seen lots of growth taking place on the charter site. So it is my dream that that will continue. I haven't necessarily encountered any instances where it said, as a Christian, do you think XYZ, which is what would differentiate something from regular Memoria Press from the charter version? That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I just haven't personally encountered it. So anyway, all of these are the same format. You have the book, the student guide, the teacher guide, and as you can see, there are 4 big pieces of literature. These are substantial in and of themselves. As is the Oak Meadow, and they are scheduled for you, like I said, in the lesson plans. What we have done previously is I'll buy like 5 or so of these novels with all of the components, and then I'll tell my daughter, I suggest that you do these, but I kind of let her pick, and also I will let her just read some of them. So this student guide takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and because we're also doing the Oak Meadow, or we're doing CMEC titles, she may not have time to completely do every single question. It's more important to me that she does all of the student guide work for some of the novels, but then is able to read the ones that we have selected rather than do all of the work for all of them. I'm really not a stickler for that. I don't think it's necessary. And I also do think there's something to be said about not picking apart every single book that you're reading and just reading it for the enjoyment or reading the story. So that is kind of the main difference. There is writing included in here. So let's just see if we can find something for Macbeth, for example. Lots of SAT vocabulary. I mean, look at that. You could just go and take the CLT or the SAT or ACT right after studying that. So there are comprehension questions, then you have literary rhetorical device exercises, and then so we write these Socratic discussion questions, but I do believe that some of these books have like full-on essays where it says discuss the theme. I can't quickly find that right now, but I do recall when she was reading Jane Eyre, that was something that she needed to do. So it's very similar in terms of the types of assignments that are done in Oak Meadow. The one difference I will say is that at the lower level, Oak Meadow does teach not only literature in its English, it has grammar and it has other things. Whereas in Memoria Press, you would have to separately purchase the English grammar recitation or do the Latin or whatever other things. But that's not as relevant for the high school level. I think you got to already have it figured out, or sign your kid up for a Brave Writer class would be my recommendation. that's what I would do. If your student's not capable of writing essays yet, which if you are stuffing them full of all these stories and all of this language since they were younger, they should be able to write. Yeah, they may not capitalize everything or punctuate it properly. Those things can easily be fixed. They should be able to, though, write by this age. Anyway, that's a separate tangent. Hopefully I have conveyed kind of the difference between these two offerings. The other difference with Memoria Press is because you can buy these novels separately, you could really do whichever ones you want. They do have more limited offerings in terms of they're not going to have world literature, but they do have some, right? Anna Karenina is from Russia. Yes, it's still Europe, but it's there's a little bit of diversity. I wish there was more, but when you're doing classics from the Western canon, obviously that's already an inherent limitation. Memoria Press is a classical approach, so you can't really fault them for following a classical approach, right? Classics are classical. But anyway, yeah, so I was just going to say you can buy these and get whichever set you want, and you can also buy individual lesson plans. So if you only are doing A Tale of Two Cities, you can buy lesson plans just for A Tale of Two Cities for like $4 or something. So it's very flexible. It's very easy to use with other programs, especially if you are doing something else and you have all of these contemporary novels and you want to incorporate some classic novels. Very easy to do that with Memoria Press. And the last thing I will say is that the Facebook group for Memoria Press, it's called Memoria Press Families, I think, is one of the most helpful Facebook groups I have ever been in. There are many veteran homeschooling parents in there. There are some employees of Memoria Press that kind of watch over things, don't necessarily respond, I don't think. There is a forum on the Memoria Press website if you want to talk directly to them. But in terms of actual other homeschooling parents that are currently doing the thing and have done the thing, and you have questions, they are very responsive. It's very helpful and is a great community. I have not been able to find that with Oak Meadow. I haven't looked that hard, to be honest, but I am in several groups and it feels like it's more just buy-sell groups. It's harder to find parents that are still teaching at that level. I think it may be because students go into the Oak Meadow online program for high school. That would be my guess. And by the way, they have a lovely, Oak Meadow has a lovely senior graduation every year. We didn't participate this year, obviously, but it sounds like it's just such a great opportunity for all students that have used Oak Meadow to come together as a community and reflect on their homeschooling experience. So those are just some random thoughts about Oak Meadow and Memoria Press. I hope that you guys find this video helpful, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you like my videos, please like and subscribe.